welcome back to the Pornstar channel. Thanks so much for clicking on yet another video. Today we're going to cover my Max Jax 2-post mid-rise lift. My channel isn't exactly big yet by any means, but it's getting big enough to the point where I have some kind of viewer interaction, and one of the most requested videos that you guys evidently want to see is me giving you guys some details and a review of the Max Jax lift. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Spoiler alert, I really like this setup. If you're working in a small space like a garage with low ceiling heights, your options pretty much are to drive onto service ramps, to use a jack and jack stands, to get the scissor lift, or one of these mid-rise 2-post lifts. Out of those 4 options, the Max Jax is the best by far. This literally does everything a full-size lift does, with the exception of course, the maximum lift height. I think the benefits that this setup has over jack and jack stands and service ramps is pretty readily apparent, but why do I like this setup a lot better than scissor lifts that you see used quite frequently in places where you don't have the height for a proper lift? Well, scissor lifts are something that you drive your car over, and then you have the whole structure of the scissor lift under the car, and it's fine when what you want to do is like taking wheels off cars, doing brake jobs, or changing out certain suspension parts and stuff. In most of those cases, scissor lifts work pretty decent, but a scissor lift becomes a giant pain as soon as you want to do anything underneath the car, like work on the trans, the drive shaft, the diff, or even like the exhaust system, you know. I think that those things are really cumbersome, so that's why I never opted to get one. This lift can be broken down and stored off to the side in probably 10 to 15 minutes. You just undo 5 fasteners per post. If you want to, you pull the pivot pins for the arms, and there's even casters on the back of the posts to move them out of the way. And the hydraulic lines have quick disconnects on them, so you just unplug them and you're good to go. The cart even has hooks on it to store the hoses when not in use. So this whole setup can be torn down in a matter of minutes. You can also set this back up rather quickly, especially if you go ahead and mark the concrete floor to indicate where the leveling shims go, so that there is no guesswork after and you don't have to measure the lift posts every time you install them. So you can make that a really quick process. Me personally, I convert this garage from being a general mechanic shop to being my paint booth. And in that case, when I'm in paint mode, I actually move the lift out of the way. I have a bunch of hooks in the ceiling that I hang tarp from so that all my tools don't get exposed to the overspray. It takes me maybe an hour in my little garage here to convert from a mechanic shop to a paint booth, and that's something that's really handy to have. I think one of the reasons that you guys asked me to do a video on this is the fact that I've been using it for 4 years. So this isn't like a quick unboxing video and then all I can tell you is, oh, this looks shiny, it's probably great. No, I have worked on a bunch of different cars on this, and I have worked with this system for 4 years. Never once have I had any issues. It has been nothing but smooth operation, and it's done everything I wanted it to do. So I absolutely love this setup. Before making this video, I went on the Max Jax homepage just to see if they even still sell the lift, and they do. And for the most part, it looks very, very similar to what I have. I think that the main lift posts, the arms, the pads, and the hydraulic unit along with its lines, best I can tell, it's still the same stuff as what I have if you were to buy it brand new right now. The difference that I see, and I didn't dig too much into this, but I'm thinking that the safety retention feature, meaning the means with which you lock out the lift when a car is sitting on it so that the car is actually supported by pins instead of sitting on the hydraulics. In my case, there are simply pins in the lift posts, and they have 2 resting positions for 2 different lift heights that you can lift the car to and then have it sit on the pins safely without having any kind of pressure on the hydraulics. That system I think may have changed, because when I look at the pictures on the homepage, a brand new Max Jax does not appear to have these pins. I think they went to some more conventional ratcheting mechanism or something like you would see on bigger lifts. I'm not positive, I didn't look into this too much. It's just something that I noticed browsing their homepages. I didn't see these anywhere. So I think they changed the way that the lockout mechanism works. As you can see, the safety pins are inserted on both posts, and this is the lower resting position of the lift. According to my tape measure, the lift pads without the pad risers are 29 inches off the ground, meaning the pinch welds or the frame rails of your car that you're picking up will be 29 inches in the air. And as you can see by me standing next to these, there is plenty of space for you to actually work on your back under the car. Like this, I would say, is about the perfect height if you like using a creeper, or if you just like crawling around under your car, which personally is actually what I prefer, because anytime I try to torque a bolt or something and I'm on a creeper, then the creeper tries to move out of the way. So yeah, in all honesty, I just enjoy working on the ground. It's also nice in the summer because the concrete floor is kind of cool. This is the height that I use 90% of the time. If I just want to swap wheels or something or do a brake job and I want the car to sit lower than this, there is no additional hole in the posts, which of course you could easily rectify yourself. But what I typically do is I lower the car down and put service ramps right under the lift arms, so that again the weight of the car is supported by something other than the hydraulics. So if you want the car to like long term sit without the wheels off or without suspension parts off, I just don't let it sit on this pin position. I set it down on service ramps or check stands right under the arms and right under the lift pads basically. This right here is the highest supported lift height. So as you can see, if you actually check your car up to this level, you'll definitely be able to like sit underneath it, use a creeper seat. This is coming in at about 45 inches without the pad risers. So now let's look at some of the features of this lifting system in detail. Here's a quick close-up of the actual lift pads. They are not threaded underneath for height adjustment like you see on a lot of the full-size two-post lifts, but they come with these pad risers that I'm assuming are going to come in handy for people that work mostly on trucks. And they change the pad height by right about 2.5 inches. All 4 lift arms on Max Jax are telescoping and pivoting. The telescoping feature does not get locked out when the lift is up. The pivot, however, is getting locked out by a spline mechanism in the back. So these arms aren't going to move on you once a car is in the air, basically. Since I'm sure this is relevant to quite a few of you, yes, this lift is relatively low car friendly. As you can see in their lowest positions, the pads are 3.5 inches off the ground. So even if your car is slammed, if you drive it on a set or 2 or 3 of 2x4s, you should definitely be able to make use of this lift. This right here is the main hydraulic unit of Max Jax. So this is what powers the whole system. You've got your hydraulic pump and you've got your hydraulic fluid reservoir, which by the way doesn't use anything fancy that's hard to source by any means. Just consult your manual, but it's essentially really easily acquired transmission fluid you can get at any auto parts store. As far as the user interface goes, you've got a button to pressurize the fluid, so it starts to pump, the lift goes up, and then you have a lever for the release valve that allows the fluid to come back through the hydraulic lines and into the reservoir to lower the lift. That's all there is to it. You just hook this up to a standard 110 volt outlet. There's no special wiring, no 220 required, none of that. The cart has casters, so it's easy to move around. The hydraulic lines at the posts actually have quick disconnects, they have threaded connectors here at the main power unit. So if you tear down your Max Jax setup, the hoses stay with the cart, and so on the back of the cart there are these hooks so that you can coil up the hoses and just hang them from the back. And so this whole unit is all basically self-contained. And when you break down your Max Jax, you have your posts, you have your power unit, store that off to the side in your shop, and free up all the space for storage use in the winter or what have you. Outside of the initial assembly, I have not had to touch this in the 4 years that I've owned the lift. I just spin up the pump, relieve the pressure. That's all I've ever done. I never had to like service it or repair it or anything. It's worked absolutely flawlessly for me. This isn't the most convenient thing to film, but on the back of these posts, you have your hydraulic quick connects. And I just wanted to show you how much of a mess, or how little of a mess it actually makes to disconnect the hydraulics from this unit. There is a little ring that you pull up. It's similar to the hookups you see in your air compressor, essentially. And there you have it. Now the line is disconnected. And we spilled a grand total of maybe 2 drops of ATF. And conversely, plugging it back in, you just pull the sleeve back and engage it, and you're back in business. Back here, you can also see the casters that are really handy to move these posts around when they're not bolted to the floor, as well as the 5 fasteners that actually anchor the lift posts to your concrete slab. I almost forgot to bring this up because it's a big thing on YouTube apparently. This review obviously was not sponsored. I paid for this thing myself and I genuinely like it, so I decided to make a video for you guys since I got so many questions on it to talk about the features, the ease of use, all that good stuff. I hope we covered that in this video. So thank you for joining me for my Max Jax review. If you have any questions for me or would like to see different content, don't be shy, jump right into the comments and let me know. Drift season is in full swing, so it's been really hard for me to put out as much content as I have in the spring, but I'll try my best and let me know what you'd like to see. And thanks so much for watching. Laters.